There are two traits that can help lead you to success. The first trait is resilience, which is your ability to push through adversity and setbacks, to get back up when you get pushed down and to keep moving forward. The second trait is called grit, a combination of passion and perseverance. It's your ability to keep a constant, sustained effort towards completing your long-term goals, to keep pushing forward where others would have given up a long time ago. You need both of these if you want to think about climbing a mountain. Celeste is a 2D platformer about climbing a mountain. It was developed by Matt Makes Games, a small indie developer. Celeste is hard. The game is centered around single screens with challenges that require some creative thinking to overcome. But the game also features a surprisingly rich and engaging story, enough that it kept me completely invested in playing even when challenges seemed impossible. Celeste started its life in 2015 as a game made for the Pico 8, a virtual machine fantasy console. This is a console that has never existed physically. Instead, it was developed in 2014 as a platform to develop retro-style games under harsh limitations. It's pretty cool. Celeste was made in just 4 days on this platform and eventually inspired the creation of the game we have now. If I had to use one word to describe this game, it would be emotion. Celeste does an excellent job conveying the emotional turmoil of its characters and the struggles they're going through, giving a lot of depth despite its simple appearance. The game is about a girl named Madeline who has come to Mount Celeste in Canada to climb up to the summit. You don't really know why or what her story is, but what you do know is that she is determined to do this. For such a simple premise, there is a lot to this game. So let's see what makes Celeste so special. The controls in this game are beautifully simple. You can jump, you can climb up walls, and you can dash in the air. You can only climb for a short period of time before you run out of stamina, and you can only dash once before you need to touch the ground. The entire game is built around exploring these mechanics and pushing them to the limits. You will need to really think about how and when to use the abilities. Dashing can make jumps easier, but many challenges will force you to refrain from dashing until a certain moment, meaning that you need to find other ways of getting over the hazards. The beginning levels offer a lot of leeway in this regard, but as you get to the deeper challenges, your motions will need to be increasingly precise. On top of these base mechanics, each level introduces a few environmental gimmicks that will change the way you play. The first level has these mechanical moving platforms that will have you playing with momentum to clear gaps and avoid spikes. The second level has these large blocks that will shoot you directly out the other end, but kill you if it ends in a wall. The third level is filled with this red hazardous material that will kill you on touch, and then the fourth level is all about trying to move against or with the strong winds that change your speed. You also have things like gems that recharge your dash in midair, bubbles that recharge and launch you where you want to go, platforms that move, platforms that crumble, and many other features that make each stage and each screen wholly unique and interesting. The levels are well crafted, ramping up the difficulty at a steady rate so that you never feel overwhelmed. They also do a fantastic job teaching you the mechanics of the game. Sometimes you're told directly what your controls are by a helpful little bird, leading to this fantastic intro sequence. This one scene lets you experience exactly how powerful this dash mechanic is and what you can do with it. But most of the time, you learn the mechanics of the stage through your own exploration. Well, you're not totally left to your own devices. You're often forced to experiment and discover with what you're given, as there is no other way to proceed. Like here, the only thing you can do is jump on this platform and learn how it's going to launch you. Or in the entrance of the fifth level, where the only way you can enter the stage is by dashing through this tight space. But Celeste is constantly taking everything you've learned and mixing them into harder and harder challenges. As for how the levels themselves play out, they are mostly linear. You enter the screen at one end and you need to exit the other. A lot of the times the game even prevents you from backtracking. Despite this, I was surprised by how much the game actually allowed you to explore within each level. There are many secrets and hidden rooms to be found off the beaten path, often leading to the optional strawberries to collect. A few times the game even delves into an almost open exploration, where you have many rooms that you can explore around a large central room. It's also pretty inclusive with its difficulty. Celeste is a hard game, but many of the more difficult challenges are optional. They are there to tackle if you like that challenge, but if you just want to finish the level and continue the story, that's cool too. And if you're finding yourself really stuck, Celeste offers an assist mode that lets you make the game easier in whatever way you wish. Infinite dash, invincibility, your choice. Some people hate the idea of easy modes, but I think it's pretty nice of them to include this. If you get overly frustrated or stuck and give up on the game because you just aren't enjoying it anymore, with this you have a way to continue enjoying the game on your own terms. Overall, Celeste is an excellent platformer and is really fun to play and master. The gameplay is only part of the picture though, because Celeste's soundtrack makes the game. The composer is Lena Ryan. She has the soundtrack up on Bandcamp, and man is it fantastic. Each level gets its own unique sound, spanning many different movements. It does a great job theming each level to be very memorable. I really appreciated how the soundtrack and level design interplay with each other. Some of my favorite moments are reaching the quiet, serene spots in Forsaken City. Or how the music will quickly shift from calm and slow to intense and fast as the wind speed change in the 4th level. Don't get me wrong, the pixel artwork is pretty great in this game, and each level looks unique, but it's only thanks to Lena Ryan's work that each level feels unique. Each track carries an emotional weight that tells you about the characters, what they're going through, and what they're feeling.
I think the moment that resonated most strongly for me was a bit towards the end of the 4th chapter, the gondola ride. All of these moments, I feel, in the game, there's these sort of very story-heavy moments where it's not just platforming, it's like, here's the exposition points that are sort of the big hurdles that Madeline has to overcome. And so, in a lot of ways, that gondola part is very much a hurdle that she has to get over, and for me, connecting into that, like, it's literal for her. It's literally she's suffering a panic attack or anxiety attack, and needs to center herself and really find herself to be able to proceed. And for me, like, I also suffer from anxiety and depression, so I identify with Madeline a lot in just kind of the struggles that she's dealing with. And so musically, when I was scoring that part, like, I really wanted to just hone in on the key parts that would make it feel like an anxiety attack and make the player uncomfortable, and to really put them in that position to kind of feel those things.
If you go and check out the soundtrack, I highly recommend Resurrections, Scattered and Lost, and Star Jump. I would recommend In the Mirror, but that song and level was way too creepy. But there's actually a good reason for that, because the song is actually being played in reverse. A recurring motif in the game is the mirror. You first encounter one in the ruins of the 2nd level, a moment that marks a shift in gameplay and tone. Following this, occurrences of mirrors and reflections are repeatedly associated with negativity and are, in a sense, antagonists in the story. Then you enter the Mirror Temple. This place is very unsettling, and it's not just because Madeline has a bad feeling. You feel it as a player. The music is calm and somber, but there are mirrors all around you, hanging on the walls and detailed right into the background. The entire time, you were just waiting for something bad to inevitably happen, and it builds a lot of tension. Not to mention, this level is a huge departure from the game so far, where you're able to freely explore multiple rooms to try to find a way further into the temple. And the deeper you go in, the darker it gets. This all comes to a head when you get sucked into the mirror dimension. The music shifts dramatically and becomes really frenetic and unsettling and kind of anxiety-inducing. But take a listen to this middle part of it. If it sounds familiar, that's because it's the same theme we heard in the beginning level, Quiet and Falling, only played backwards. If you reverse a song, you can hear it emerge really nicely. In fact, if you line up the reverse track with Quiet and Falling, you'll find they line up almost perfectly. It's really hard to tell in the beginning through all the noise and chaos, but at around the 233 mark, you can hear the strike of the D note in both tracks. and slowly, the chaos pulls away to reveal that the familiar track had been there underneath the whole time. And if that wasn't symbolic enough for Madeline's struggle with her emotional distress suffocating her, the verse in the track also reveals a hidden message.
Sometimes I don't really know what's going on anymore. I don't know who I am. I just look in the mirror and don't know who I'm looking at or who's looking at me.
So this song and soundtrack are pretty brilliant, and Lana Rain did an amazing job here. I really like the mix of gamey chiptune sounds with the real drum tracks and instruments. It's a really cool mix of new and old.
And it's tricky, especially for something that's rooted very specifically in a certain style, because with Celeste it's that very chunky, pixelated, lo-fi art. It's very easy to kind of go in the 8-bit, chiptune direction or whatever. But I think a lot with Celeste actually is about sort of crossing mediums. There's the 3D mountain, there's the hand-illustrated UI stuff, and then the pixel art. Like, there's a lot of different mediums at play, and so I felt like we could do a lot more with crossing between different fidelities of instruments.
While we're on the topic of sound design, I also have to give praise to how they handled the characters' voices. There is no actual voiceover in the game, and for all the dialogue, you'll be reading text boxes. But as the text appears on the screen, you'll hear gibberish sounds alongside it. Through this, dialogue in Celeste is incredibly emotionally rich. It is a really good example of emotional prosody in speech. Changes in pitch, timbre, and speed hold a lot of the emotional content in speech in real life. And by removing the semantic content of these characters' voices, they can focus entirely on their emotions, exaggerating them to really make these characters come alive. This goes a long way into making Madeline and everybody she meets very unique and very memorable. As you may have gathered by now, Celeste has a pretty rich story to discover. It's what drew me in immediately and kept me playing the whole way through, right from my first encounter with Theo. There's something very charming and human about all these characters that makes them very believable, even if their world is kind of improbable. The main character, Madeline, is not doing so well. You get a sense of it from our first few conversations, but after her literal reflection breaks apart from her as a manifestation of her negativity, you begin to think that she might have some things she needs to work out. Something to keep in mind is that this is a small-scaled story. This isn't a story about saving something or trying to stop something, or even discovering the secrets of the mountain. This is a very personal story about trying to prove something and confronting yourself along the way. As such, this game deals with emotional themes that you don't usually see. Anxiety, depression, panic attacks, obsession, and I think it conveys and handles all of these really well. And the thing I find really cool is that the story is not just some decoration on top of the excellent gameplay. They interplay with each other, just like the soundtrack. What's going on in the story will directly tie into the gameplay, whether you're being chased by your doppelgangers, by Mr. Oshiro, or so on. And this interaction means that you feel Madeline's struggle as your own. I think this is one of the reasons why this game is better if you don't use the assist mode, although I won't judge you if you do. Climbing Mount Celeste is not an easy task, for you or for Madeline, and by struggling and overcoming the mountain, in a sense, you experience the struggle that she goes through. Basically, the game does a good job putting in the character's shoes through gameplay, and that is a sign of good cohesion. At the beginning of this video, I said the two traits that can help you lead you to success are resilience and grit. By playing through this game, by overcoming the crazy obstacles, and by finally reaching the summit of Mount Celeste, you show that both you and Madeline have both of these. Celeste is a fantastic game. There's so much polish and work put into it, with a great story to tell that can even teach you something about yourself. This game is excellently themed. The fact that the mirror temple is so unsettling when nothing is going wrong, just in the presence and the meaning of the mirror, speaks a lot to the strong narrative design. And once you're done with Celeste, the game keeps on giving. There's tons of endgame content for you to consume. An extra ridiculous world, hidden collectibles, and super hard alternatives at every level. I mean unfairly hard. If this is your cup of tea, Celeste has a whole pot brewed for you.